I'm honored to be here with members of the state government, the backbone of the city of Montpelier, and the Honorable Mayor John Hollar to talk a little bit about the energy plant back of us that I think is going to be an example for how to do energy right for the rest of the country. As you know, this is a partnership to get off our addiction to oil, to create jobs in Vermont, and to ensure that we do what we can to pass a state to our kids and grandkids that is more livable than the one we've created by burning oil, to ensure the climate change disasters don't strike them. This plant in this project is unusual. It is a project between municipal, state, and federal government, and the best example of what we can do together to ensure that we have a clean, green energy future that creates jobs for Vermonters. This biomass heat plant today will be created because of a lot of good community work, but our dream and our hope is that it will be a partnership between green energy for state buildings and green energy for downtown Montpelier for both businesses and individuals. Together we'll succeed. So far, today we're going to pass a check to the City of Montpelier from the Clean Energy Development Fund, which came from some of the ARA money that President Obama envisioned, along with Congress, that we needed to help jumpstart this economy and grow green jobs. We're making progress in Vermont. As we know, just a few weeks ago, the Department of Labor Statistics released this great figure for Vermont. Not only have we reduced our unemployment rate from a high of about 8.2% to 4.8% as of last week in this great state, but Vermont has created more green jobs per capita than any other state in the country. This project is an example of how and why we do that. So today we're going to pass the mayor a check. It represents $1 million in grant money from the Clean Energy Development Fund. It's the biggest single grant to be allocated so far from those ARA funds, along with a $750,000 loan to help make this project happen. The dollars for this project are as follows. This $1.75 million, $1 million grant, is being matched by a $7 million allocation from the capital bill from the state of Vermont, and $8 million in federal Department of Energy grants, and $2 million that was approved by the voters of the city of Montpelier. So this is an example of what's best about Vermont's energy future. I want to, before I give the check to the mayor, give him a chance to say a few words, along with Andy Perslick, who's here as well, the executive director of the Clean Energy Development Fund. So, Mr. Mayor, thanks for joining us. Who's going first?
Okay.
Okay. You speak first, then we'll do the check.
Okay. Thank you, Governor and staff of the Buildings and General Services and the legislature for helping us focus some attention on this project. Because I think this is a really good project that exemplifies the best of the ARA program as well as what the CEDF does. It might not be as sexy as a field of gleaming solar panels or as eye-catching as a spinning wind turbine, but this is a really critical project for a couple of reasons that I want to lay out. One, this is the last grant that we'll be giving of the $22 million of ARA funds that we got. 3 years ago, we got this $22 million, and the CDF has been working really hard. And I want to acknowledge Sam Swanson, who's CDF board member and has been on the board for several years and was instrumental in making sure that the CDF supported this project. But this project is, as I say, is a great example of the ARA program that we've been really working hard over the last 2 years to spend that money to meet the goals of DOE, but also meet the goals of the state of this clean energy economy that we're trying to build and more jobs in the clean energy sector. And it's also a good example of some of this money that we provided to state government. This is $1 million that's going to go to this state plant, but we've also given $4 million to other state building projects, from a geothermal project in Bennington to an energy efficiency project up in Newport that will also save taxpayer dollars on energy costs. And overall, we've been able to leverage this money, this ARA money, on a 3-to-1 basis, bringing in $60 million of private other investment to the state for clean energy projects. This is also a great project to represent the work that the CEDF does, and this is a good reason to show why the CEDF was created, I think. We are not giving the most amount of money to this project. It's over a $20 million project. We're providing, just under $2 million for the project, but we played a critical role when the project was having some problems. The state and the city was able to come to the CDF and the CDF board and say, we need a little more funding here, some other help. And I think not only did we provide some funding, but I think what we played a role that I hope that we play more, which is kind of a coordinating role and working the different issues that a project has, getting through the permitting process and working between the different players. So with that, I just want to, again, thanks everybody for giving a highlight to this project, and also want to thank the governor for his leadership and supporting the Clean Energy Development Fund, and the legislature, the staff at the Department of Public Service, and the Clean Energy Development Board. And also we want to say we really look forward to working with the governors and others on continuing to build this clean energy economy in the state, and particularly we're looking forward to working with Buildings and General Services and the great city of Montpelier and making this a great success and an example of a great renewable energy project for towns and cities across Vermont and as well as across the nation. Thanks.
Excellent. Good work. And now for the moment that perhaps the mayor's been waiting for. It's a great honor to pass to you today this small check in the amount of $1.75 million. Governor, congratulations. Spend it wisely. You say a few words. Take it away, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Shumlin and Andrew Perchlik, for your support for this project. As the governor said, this is a great example of the city of Montpelier, the state of Vermont, and the federal government coming together to promote renewable energy and for the economic benefits that are going to result from that in the city of Montpelier. We think Montpelier can be a showcase for other communities in the use of renewable energy to heat its downtown business district. It's also a very fitting use of federal stimulus money. Our downtown business owners have the opportunity to benefit for decades to come from a stable, environmentally renewable and low impact source of renewable energy to heat their buildings. The project also is going to help our downtowns to become more flood resilient as they're able to remove their boilers from their basements where obviously over the years they've been at risk. I want to thank also some of our city staff, City Manager Bill Fraser, who has spent much and dedicated much of his life over the last couple of years towards this project. Also Gwen Allsmith, equally dedicated towards bringing us to this point, as well as the City Council, Angela Toponi, here representing our City Council, and the others on the staff, as well as a former Mayor, Mary Hooper, who was also instrumental in bringing us to this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mayor, thank you, Angela and Gwen and Bill, for your strong and good work. If you all have any questions, we'd be happy to try and answer them. I want to acknowledge my team from BGS. Thanks for all your great work and cooperation, keeping this plant running and the improved plant that's on its way. Thanks to Wanda. And I know that Commissioner Obohosky is en route. If he shows up, we'll put him on. Take it away, team.
Mr. Mayor, wasn't the city prepared to pull the trigger, as you said, in March on this plant if the state hadn't stepped in?
We have been committed to making this plant economically viable for the city of Montpelier through the cooperative efforts of the state and the federal government. We think we're in a position to be able to do that, to get to the point where we know what the costs are for building owners before we finally commit. So there are some abilities if this project becomes much more expensive than we think that it will be, we could decide not to go forward. I think the state will continue to build its own plant, and it's viable for them. But we still have a few hurdles to go, but I think it's going to work out for us.
As of March, was it $1 million over budget?
We were about $900,000 below budget at that point, or I'm sorry, the revenue was below what our expenses were projected. We've had to reconfigure it. We've changed the length of some of the pipes to reduce the scale of it. And also, we've begun more intensive efforts to solicit business support. So, and many businesses in the downtown community have since committed, and that gap has been closed, and we think it's on solid footing.
Governor, what made the state step in on what looks like it may have been a failing project back in March?
Well, you know, this is really an exciting project. We want to see it happen. As you know, right now the plant is inefficient. We're burning more fuel than we should be, and we're using oil backup more frequently than we'll have to with a new plant. So the state needs to do this for our state buildings anyway. I also think that the partnership with Montpelier is really important. You know, this kind of heating system is commonplace in Western Europe and other parts of the world. We're slow in America to be catching up. As you know, we're the biggest energy hogs compared to any other state and country in the world. We have to find ways to move to renewables, to be more efficient. And I think partnerships between local communities, business groups, business leaders, downtown retailers in the state are really important. So we want to see this project happen. And we think it'll be a real showcase for the rest of the country.
Let me, if I could, just step in and clarify, because I think maybe I misunderstood the question. This funding has been in place for a year, at least a year, since last summer. So the $1 million gap we were facing was after this funding source was in place. We've since closed that gap by shrinking the size of the project and obtaining support and commitments from private business users.
What happens to all this money if this project gets shut down?
Well, the project won't.
If Montpelier's portion, not the state portion, but don't you still have a city council vote coming up to kind of finally sign off on this thing? Or has the council said, yes, we're behind it 100%?
We've got a couple of more steps to go, and we'll cross those thresholds when we know what the final cost of the project is going to be in terms of laying the pipes throughout the city. We have a pretty good sense of that, and we've got, as I said, very strong business support as well as the all of the municipal buildings, which will be part of the project. So we think that gap's going to close, but if we were surprised, if those costs came in at significantly higher than we thought, then we would delay this and continue to work on it over the years to make it work. The state's project stands alone, and the governor or others can talk about that. Our commitment is to continue to plan. We think it's going to be viable, but we are going to wait to make that final commitment when we know what those costs are.
Governor, are you going to run again?
When is that marathon? November. I'm focused on the Burlington Marathon. I thought you were talking about that. I'm going to be in the Burlington Marathon for sure.
As a relay team, or are you doing the whole thing by yourself?
I'm a group effort kind of governor.
Does Saturday look doable from your point of view? I understand there are a couple of hard sells going over. There's a vaccination bill, for example, and does it feel like it's moving fast enough?
You know, I think they're doing good work, and I think they're going to adjourn on Saturday. If I were betting, I'd bet for Saturday. I think it's important. You know, the Vermont taxpayers really want their citizen legislature to make the right decisions. They also don't want them to spend $275,000 a week that wasn't budgeted when we're in tough fiscal times. So I fully expect that the legislature will adjourn on Saturday. Might be late in the night, but Saturday. And I think the taxpayers will be appreciative of their good work and of looking out for the bottom line.
What do you think about the compromise on the immunization bill?
I think it's a good compromise. I felt very strongly that the philosophical exemption should stand. I also feel very strongly that as a state, we have a responsibility to ensure that our kids are inoculated from dreadful diseases that our grandparents suffered from. And I think, you know, really in typical Vermont fashion, this bill is going to get us the best of both worlds. It's going to help educate Vermont parents to the choices that they have, to the actual facts about inoculations, and separate the myth that you see from the internet from the medical facts about what these inoculations do. Second, it has us all collectively ensuring that that education process works by not dropping below 90% immunization among our school kids. I think that's a perfect compromise. It allows parents to ultimately make the decision about whether or not their kids should be inoculated, gives them the education they need, and ultimately will raise the level of our immunized kids across the state. So I think it's a good bill.
So if I understand it correctly, it says that parents have a right to use the philosophical exemption unless the statewide rate drops below 90%.
That's
Can you
correct.
think of another situation where people have a right to do something, but if too many people avail themselves of that right, that everybody loses it?
Well, I haven't given that a lot of thought, and you usually don't ask a question you know the answer to, so I'll assume the answer is no. But having said that, doesn't mean it's not a good idea. And I really do think that we're a long way from 90% in Vermont. That if we drop below 90%, we're clearly losing the battle. Most Vermonters are logical. They want their kids to be healthy, and they don't want their kids suffering from diseases that our grandparents lived in fear of. And I think that if we have better education, and that if we ensure that the real facts are getting out about these shots and their benefits of them and from them, we will not fall below 90%, and therefore that threshold will probably never be utilized.
Are you going to get a renewable energy bill?
We're working very hard on that. I just met with the leadership of the House and the Senate. I feel very strongly that we should and must get a renewable energy bill before we go home. Listen, this state should be proud of the fact that we now have more green jobs per capita than any other state in the country. We should be proud of the fact that we're leading the effort nationally to get off of oil and to harness the wind and the sun and our fields and our forests and our streams for a strong renewable energy future that creates jobs and allows projects like this one to go forward. We can't do that if we don't have a bill that allows for the continuation of the standard offer program in a thoughtful way that doesn't jack our electric rates, because that would be a job killer, but instead finds a very methodical and careful path to moving to renewables.
Can you be sure this doesn't jack electric grids?
Well, I believe that the proposal that we made to the legislature, which was 5 megs a year, would not significantly change rates for Vermonters. I do have some concerns that the combined effort of the bills that the legislature has put together might have an adverse impact on rates over time, and I think that the final bill that gets to me will ensure that we have a strong, clean energy future and that we continue to create jobs by having competitive electric rates. That's the balance that I intend to find as governor.
Would you like to see the legislature pass the early education, childhood education bill? It seems to be delayed in the Senate. Is that something that you think this legislature should pass?
I support the bill, and I think it should pass. I would like to have that bill on my desk. This is a group of primarily women who do extraordinarily important work. All the research suggests that if you have quality early education, every dollar you spend on early education saves $7 to $10 later on. This is a group of people that are underpaid and have a very tough time negotiating because they're working so hard providing early childhood education for low wages, and they're focusing on jobs. So I think the bill makes sense.
But if they, I guess the argument against it is if they are able to negotiate, what position does that put the state in? Do you feel the state should be paying these folks more money? And if so, why aren't we doing it now?
I think that the collective bargaining process works. I'm a big believer in it. And I think that this bill would give collective bargaining to people who are working for wages that are not sustainable. The other thing that's really important about this is if we don't begin to adjust early educators' pay, what happens is we train them, we get them certified, we improve their educational skills as teachers and mentors, and then they go take a higher paying job in the school system, teaching either grade or high school in Vermont, where they have good pay and good benefits. So this is a problem we need to solve together, and I think that bill would help us do it.
What do you think of campaign finance reform being scuttled?
Well, I only know what I've read in the paper. I guess it's dead for the year. I got to say that the point that hasn't been made about campaign finance efforts, whether it's in Vermont or any other state, is that as long as Citizens United continues to stand and corporations can spend unlimited amount of money without disclosing where it comes from on political campaigns, we are going to undermine democracy in America, and corporations are going to have a disproportionate voice in the electoral process. And I think as long as citizens is there, any efforts that states make to try to do quote-unquote campaign finance reform are rather irrelevant compared to the real problem, and a distraction, frankly, from what is the biggest threat to democracy in my lifetime, which is treating corporations as citizens and allowing them to spend unlimited money on campaigns in Vermont and every other state without even identifying where that money is coming from, who's spending it, or any checks and balances on what they say. I think it's a disaster, and that's what I'd focus on if I were giving some advice.
But has it reared its head in Vermont yet, Citizens United?
Sure it has. Go look at the Shumlin Doobie campaign. I mean, you saw the most uncharacteristic campaign for a Vermont governor in our history. There were outside groups spending millions of dollars. None of us know where the money came from. And the ads were mostly despicable.
So in all these still unresolved bills, what role are you playing? It ought to be easy for you to get what you want, given you have big majorities in both houses, right?
And what issue are we on now?
On the three that are still unresolved, you mentioned childcare, vaccination, energy.
I think we're going to get a energy bill and a vaccination bill that we can be proud of.
Are you stepping in? Are you bringing
Sure.
people in for private consultation?
You bet. No, I really think the legislature's doing good work. We're working closely together. We're making progress. There's no such thing as the end of a legislative session that isn't a little bit messy. But I will say, judge the legislators by what they do, not how they do it. And I think you're going to see some job-creating bills that are going to be good for Vermont.
Is there anything out there that you really care about, that you're a little worried that it may not make it through?
I think we're going to get our very ambitious agenda through the legislature, and we're going to have a lot to be proud of when we go home. Are there a few individual bills I would have liked to see? Probably, but I think when all is said and done, the job will be done.
Why didn't you veto the tanning bill?
You know, I didn't veto the tanning bill because I do think that any education we can do to ensure that parents know that tanning booths cause cancer and are a health hazard in the future is a step in the right direction. The bill itself doesn't do much in my judgment, so I'm not going to sign it. I'll let it become law. It doesn't do much because, first of all, we have no idea where tanning booths are, and we know that, frankly, many of them are in people's homes and basements. Second, we don't have any law enforcement capability to go out and find them. And third, the bill is pretty ambiguous about who exactly would get charged in the first place. So, you know, it's not a very well-crafted bill. I think the intent is a good one, which is let's try to get our kids out of tanning booths and educate parents about the dangers of it. I personally would rather leave those decisions to parents in the end, and I think this bill is so ineffective that it will.
Is it true that you'll be leaving the Bears behind and becoming a resident of East Montpelier?
No, I'm sticking with the house I've got right now. You know, we never predict where the Bears might be, but I think as spring comes, they'll be living deep in the woods where they belong.
Thank you.
That scared Sue away. Thanks. Anyone have anything else? You all happy? Great. We'll see you 12:35 a.m. Sunday.